Last year in 2025, I watched 147 films and I read 55 books. So I wanted to come up with two top 10 lists, one from each category so that you can see my favorites and maybe find something new for you to read or watch this year. As I was beginning to craft and curate these two lists, I quickly realized that I needed to come up with some guidelines because I was going a little bit crazy, specifically within the film list. As I was pulling from the 147 that I watched, that list started to skew heavily towards my favorite rewatches. And I thought that wouldn't be really interesting or fair because my favorite films of all time are probably not going to change that often. So I decided to make this list specific to only films that were released and premiered in 2025. So out of the 147 films that I watched last year, 101 of them were released and published in 2025. And that's where I pulled the top 10 from. The books list, however, I thought all 55 books that I read last year were fair game, because I don't only read recently published stuff, so I wouldn't have been able to come up with 10 books at that. So yeah, every book that I read, I was able to pull from. I think it's time to get started. How I am going to reveal the two lists are, I will do the number 10 spot for film, the number 10 spot for books, and onward and forward. At the number 10 spot for films is Jay Kelly. And I'm not going to lie, this film did knock out Avatar, Fire and Ash because it was really close between those two. But I stand Noah Baumbach, and just the fact that this film, it pays honor to cinema, and not only is it like a career retrospective for George Clooney in a very meta way, especially at the ending. I was moved by this, and Adam Sandler is also phenomenal in this. He might win Best Supporting Actor. So yeah, I had missed Noah Baumbach's films, and I'm glad that this one came out in 2025. And at the number 10 spot for books is Spiritual But Not Anxious by Daryl Smith. And this book is a bit of a conflict of interest because I did produce the audiobook edition for this book because Daryl's a friend and I also help with his marketing efforts for his writing. Even besides that, I do think this is a really, really powerful nonfiction read, especially if you're someone who has religious baggage. Daryl is just one of the writers and teachers that I know that just gets it. Number 9 for films is the only documentary that I have on this list, and it is The New Yorker at 100. And as a writer and aspiring author, I really respect and idolize institutions like The New Yorker. And I really appreciated this documentary that not only showed them behind the scenes of them celebrating their 100-year anniversary, but also showing their history. And I didn't really know much about that. Number 9 for books is The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket. And this book is the first one in a series of unfortunate events. And when I was younger, I hated reading. And it's funny to say that now because I am an aspiring author, but this is one of the series that when I was in school, when I was younger, I did actually read and enjoy. And part of that is, yes, because it did have the film adaptation. But yeah, I wanted to revisit this one because as I'm writing my first book that is for a younger reading level, I thought, why not revisit one of the series that meant a lot to me when I was younger. Number 8 for films is Thunderbolts. And this is one of the recent Marvel films that just didn't, frankly, piss me off. Yeah, Marvel has lost some of its magic as of late, and this one, I was caught off guard. I did go in with low expectations, so that could have helped it, but I watched it, I think, like twice. It stuck with me, especially the message of community and being there for somebody who is going through a traumatic period or depression, and how we can help each other. And I thought that was really powerful. And the fact that they were able to get that message within the confines of a superhero story, it's something that Marvel hasn't done well recently. And this one slipped through as one that was efficient and powerful. And number 8 for books is John Green's Everything is Tuberculosis. And this book is his second entry into writing nonfiction. I shouldn't have been surprised by how much I was going to appreciate and enjoy this book, but John Green is able to draw connections from tuberculosis to almost any person or time or subject, and it's really interesting. And not only that, but like he calls people to action with this book, because not only is tuberculosis one of the most deadliest diseases of all time, but like we have the means to basically wipe it out. The fact that we don't is pretty scary if the disease continues to mutate. At number 7 for films is Materialists. I know a lot of people thought they were misled with the marketing and promo, and I do get that, but I did like that it was a little bit darker of a rom-com, and its message about liking someone for who they are and not what they have, I thought was really powerful. It's an A24 film, so I had high expectations, and they delivered. I also really love Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal, and yeah, I enjoyed this one. At number 7 for books is Animal Farm by George Orwell. And this is a classic for a reason, and it's crazy how much I saw of it that resonates to today. This book, it might have been one that we were assigned to read, either that or senior classes above us were assigned to read it in high school, or maybe I just didn't read it, which is very possible. But yeah, I read this one with my friend Hugh, and it's a classic again for a reason. And I thought it was really powerful in such a simple children's story message, but it delivers a lot within that frame of mind and that perspective. And yeah, George Orwell is one of the greats for a reason. Number 6, come on, it's Sinners by Ryan Coogler. This one in IMAX was amazing. It's crazy that Coogler was able to come up with an original vampire story and make it just so freaking great. I thought it was so intense. The cast is amazing. The production design, costuming, cinematography. It's definitely going to get some more award nominations for the future, and rightfully so. And I also love the fact that, again, in a meta way, that this is about ownership and art and stuff. And Ryan Coogler behind the scenes was able to make a deal that was pretty much hasn't happened before, where he will own the IP rights in the future. And I thought that it's in line with the story of the film. At number 6 for books is Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. And I thought this one was really, really great. It's a nonfiction book about finances, which blah, right? But this one is able to reframe finances through the lens of basically time. Like, we have a limited time here on Earth, and so why are we going to wait until retirement to earn our money? Yes, there's a balance, right? Like with saving so that you have enough for the future, but why are you going to wait until you're 60 and your knees hurt and you're not able to do as much stuff as you were when you were younger? So it just poses those questions and gives some pretty good options of how to make that balance. At number 5 for films is Marty Supreme. And come on, Timothée Chalamet, he's an icon for a reason. I thought this was so funny and intense. Yes, it did get a little bit repetitive at times, but I just had a blast. I went with some friends and we watched it and we all enjoyed it. Number 5 was a book that I revisited for the second time, and it's Indigo, The Color of Grief by Jonathan Foster. This was the first book that I chose to read after my grandma had passed, and it's because I had read this book before. It's a poetry book and I saw how powerful it was, and immediately after the funeral on the way home, I put this audiobook on and I listened to it again. And Jonathan Foster is a friend, but yeah, he crafted a really powerful book with this one. Number 4 was a surprise, and it's Eternity. And I love romance and A24. And this is another A24 film that delivered, which I thought it was so, so good. I cried so much in this film. Elizabeth Olsen, I stan. Miles Teller, I also love. Yeah, this is a beautiful film about love, life, death, and just how powerful those attachments are. Yeah, I thought it was just precious. Number 4 for books is Love Poems for Anxious People by John Kenney. And this one was very much a surprise. I had only read it because it's a poetry book and it was short. And it was back in September or October when I was falling behind on my annual reading goal. So I was like, I need some quick wins. And this was a series that I stumbled upon. And it's so funny. It's a series of 4 books. This is the first one that I read, and it's probably my favorite of the 4. And John Kenny, through poetry, is able to make me laugh like no other book really has. All right, I'm getting a little nasally, so I'm going to try to speed this up. But at number 3 for films is Hamnet. And if you need a good cry, this is the film to go see. It's about William Shakespeare, his family, and that's all I'll say, apart that Jessie Buckley is going to win Best Actress. And this is gut-wrenching. At number 3 for books is The Notebook. And not The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks, which is, of course, a classic and my favorite, but this one specifically is The Notebook, A History of Thinking on Paper by Roland Allen. It's a nonfiction book, and just like the subtitle says, it's about paper and journals and notebooks and how they came to be. And you don't think of paper and notebooks as technology, but they are. And as someone who's a writer and who loves journals and stuff like that, I thought this was so fascinating. He tells not only the history of how notebooks came to be, but how famous artists and philosophers and scientists and families all use notebooks, and just the connections he makes, the way he crafts a story and makes it so engaging and compelling. It's a masterclass in writing, and just, yeah, again, if you love stationery and journals, it's fascinating. At number 2 for films is Train Dreams. And you might see a theme that I like sad stuff and melancholy and crying, because this one will also really make you cry. I thought it was extremely powerful. It's just about a simple man who led a simple life and just a tragedy that he also goes through. And yeah, Joel Edgerton is fantastic. At number 2 for books is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff. I was so charmed with this story. It's told through a series of letters from an author in New York contacting a bookstore in Europe around the 1940s, 50s. It's just basically shows a relationship that is formed, a friendship between the author and the bookstore staff. If you are just an appreciator of literature and art and just books in general, this is a great book for a book lover. Yeah, I thought it was really, really beautiful. Also a short read that I read when trying to get some quick wins for my reading goal. But yeah, I'm glad that I encountered it. Okay, number 1 for films is One Battle After Another by the great icon, Paul Thomas Anderson. It's so good, y'all. I'd put money on it that it's going to win Best Picture. I also love that I saw this one in Los Angeles with some of my closest friends, which I did vlog in my first YouTube video, so if you want to check that out. But yeah, I saw this in 70mm IMAX, which is just amazing. This film isn't only funny, but it's intense and timely. And yeah, PTA is the GOAT. And I really, really loved this one. Okay, it's time for the last pick. And at number 1 for books is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney is one of my favorite contemporary authors. She's an Irish author, if you don't know. She wrote the beloved Normal People, which is adapted into one of my favorite shows. And this one, when it was announced, I was immediately looking for anything that I could find about it, whether I could find a signed copy. I ended up traveling from San Antonio to Austin just to go pick up the book from a bookstore that had a midnight release party, and then drove back home right after grabbing that book. That's how much I love this author. And then the book itself, when I read it, I was just blown away by the way that she's able to juxtapose the narratives from 2 different brothers and the writing styles. Like, it's just, again, a masterclass in writing. And yeah, she's one of the greatest to be doing it today. Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. All right, y'all. This video, I'm not going to lie, took me a lot longer than I expected to film, but I did want to curate these 2 lists and share them with you. If you have read or watched any of these and love them, or if you have other opinions, share them in the comments, or other recommendations. I want to see what I missed, if I missed anything. I appreciate you all for watching. If you're still watching this, let's make this new year about human art and expression and creativity. So films and books and community, and yeah, sharing that with others. That's what this year is going to be about for me. and I hope you'll join me for that. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Go watch something good. Go read something beautiful. Have a good one.